strike like the one the Sens made yesterday would have been the signal for the Leafs to respond, but as it stands, of course, Toronto is not in a buyer position with the deadline approaching. Still, is Cliff Fletcher feeling any pressure to make a deal? We find out from Darren Millard.
Cliff, your first assignment as interim general manager is now in the books. Now that you've completed that entire evaluation process, what would be your biggest concern?
Well, it's consistent with what I've said ever since I came on board, and that is the mandate is to move the Leafs up the rung of the ladder so that we can eventually compete game in, game out with the top teams in the league. We've had extensive internal meetings here over the last couple of weeks, and now we're ready for the onslaught, if there is to be one, between now and the trade deadline.
Well, you know what? Challenging your ability to make transactions are no trade agreements dominating your roster at the upper level. Do you feel handcuffed?
Well, obviously it'll be an issue with the 5 players who have them if they happen to become involved in a trade situation, but it's not uncommon to what's going on around the league. As I understand it, there's over 100 players in the league who have no trade contracts, and one of those players, Corey Stillman, moved yesterday from Carolina to Ottawa.
How many of the guys with no trade agreements have you talked to? We know about the Mats conversation.
No, I've only spoken to Mats because of the frenzy surrounding the issue here when I came, and but I don't see the necessity to talk to any of the other players unless there's a situation that comes about that's really appealing to the Leafs. Then at that time we'll go and discuss it with that particular player.
Sorry, Cliff, just to clarify, the guys with no trades outside of Mats, you won't go to them unless somebody calls?
Absolutely not.
We're waiting for this wheeling and dealing to start. Fans are dominating the open line shows. How active do you think you'll be over the next 2 weeks?
Well, it takes 2 to dance. You can only be as active as you're allowed to be as far as negotiations with other teams go. We have ideas on what we would like to do, and you never make a deal unless it's acceptable on both sides. So consequently, we'll have to see what happens. I mean, we're definitely not going to make a trade just to make a trade, but if we think it's a step forward for the club in the future, then we'll definitely look at it.
Here's one for you. Complication could be winning and getting back into this race. Will that influence your decision at all moving forward?
I don't think any whatsoever. I'm really proud of the way the team's playing. We're getting tremendous effort. After the game in Buffalo tomorrow night, we have 5 consecutive home games. And the way we're playing now, we're gaining a little bit of momentum, and we're getting great goaltending. So if we're on a roll, that's great. But any trade that we may make is to hopefully bode well for the team in the future. The one thing we won't do is make a short-term move just to try to improve our playoff chances this year. That's against what we're going to try to accomplish here.
Well, 14 days, and we wait with interest. We appreciate your time today, Cliff.
All right, my pleasure, anytime.